She took her own life after seeing her results. The shocking truth behind Adama's last message. Adama Musa was the kind of girl people pointed to when they wanted to prove that dreams could rise from dust. In Zaran, a town where rusty zinc roofs groaned in the sun and children learned to live with flickering hope, she was more than a student. She was a symbol. She walked with the quiet dignity of someone who had made peace with sacrifice. Each morning, she swept the small front yard before sunrise, tied a scarf tightly, and headed to the town's only public library, a 3-room building with broken fans and shelves half eaten by termites. Even the librarian, a man who rarely smiled, would nod respectfully when Adama walked in. She was preparing for her third attempt at the National University entrance exam, and this time it was different. Not because the questions would be easier, not because life had gotten kinder, but because Adama had changed. Her fire had grown colder, more focused, determined. People around her whispered praise. That girl is going places. She'll lift her family out of this town. Just wait. She'll get in this time. Her father, a retired driver who now pushed a wheelbarrow at the market, never said much, but his eyes carried pride and expectation. Each night, Adama read until her candle burned to his tab. She took mock tests on borrowed phones. She saved her lunch money to buy data for online lessons. She even kept a notebook titled My Life After Admission, where she listed everything she would do once she got into the university. Her handwriting was steady. Her dreams were large. But not everyone cheered for her. At school, some classmates laughed behind her back. She's trying again. Maybe the third failure will teach her something. It's not brains, it's luck, and she doesn't have it. Still, Adama smiled through it. Not because it didn't hurt, but because she had learned long ago that silence was stronger than argument. Then came result day. In Saharan, result day had a rhythm. Streets grew quiet, phones buzzed, some shouted, others sobbed. The internet cafe at the junction stayed open all night. People waited for news like villagers waiting for rain. Adama didn't go out that morning. Her best friend Hajara visited her home just after 9 a.m. She found Adama sitting on a stool outside, phone in hand, eyes frozen on the screen. You've checked? Hajara asked. Adama didn't answer, but she smiled just a little. A tight, hollow smile that didn't touch her eyes. Hajara leaned closer. What did you score? Adama handed her the phone. 145. Silence stretched. Hajara didn't know what to say. She wanted to lie, to say it's a mistake, or you try again. But Adama wasn't looking at her anymore. She was staring at the sky, like she was searching for something to hold on to. That evening, Adama didn't come to the library. She didn't reply to messages. When a younger brother asked her what she wanted for dinner, she just shook her head. Later that night, she sent a text to her older sister in another town. "Tell Papa I tried, but I can't disappoint him again." The phone was found beside her bed the next morning. Her room was neat. Nothing was broken. No chaos. No note. Just absence. A cold, crushing, heavy absence. The town went still. Neighbors gathered and whispers. Students stopped studying. Teachers cried. Even the man who mocked her score a year ago sat quietly on the mosque steps, holding his head in his hands. Everyone asked the same question: why? But the ratio came 3 days later. Mr. Salisu, the ICT teacher at the school, arrived at the principal's office with a printed sheet in hand. His voice trembled as he explained. He had been rechecking students' scores on the National Board's back-end platform, part of a new initiative to verify data for scholarship applications. He paused, swallowed hard, and said, "Adama scored 241, not 145. Her result on the public portal was corrupted. A system error." The room froze. For a long time, no one in Zaran spoke. They had gathered in the dusty staff room of the community school, where the walls were yellowed from years of heat and chalk dust, and the only fan spun lazily, moving hot air from one corner to another. The printer hummed quietly as Mr. Salisu placed the sheet on the table. Adama Musa score 241. The principal, a stout man with eyes dulled by decades of disappointment, stood slowly. He picked up the paper like it might break. He read it once, then again. "Are you sure?" Mr. Salisu nodded. I cross-checked. "It's verified. The portal must have pulled an outdated or corrupted version. Have seen it happen. Just never this bad." The staff room filled with a thick, aching sound of regret. Across town, the news spread like wind-fed fire. People whispered at market stalls. Phones rang. Students, some barely holding in their own fears about the future, sat in silence. She had made it. Adama had crossed the line. She had worked, waited, prayed, and she had won. But no one had told her. By the time the school sent someone to the Musa household, it was too late for apologies. Adama's father sat on a low wooden bench outside the compound, holding his prayer beads tightly. His eyes, red from sleepless nights, barely moved as the principal spoke. "She passed, sir. She passed. The man didn't react. He just nodded once, then looked toward his gate. Like maybe, if he stayed long enough, he could will her to return. The investigation. It didn't take long before the issue grew beyond Zaran. The educational board sent representatives. The press showed up, notebooks in hand, cameras rolling. At first, they treated it like a human interest story, a glitch, a tragedy. But beneath that, something darker began to take shape. 2 more students from neighboring towns had similar complaints. Lower than expected scores, missing records, strange portal errors. Most hadn't spoken up. They just accepted the failure. It became clear Adama's case wasn't isolated. A national tech consultant hired by the board gave a public statement. There was a cache error in the result distribution server. Affected results may not have reflected final scores. It's been corrected now. But the damage had already rooted itself deep. Protests erupted in several states. Parents demanded transparency. Students refused to sit for the next mock exams until they received certified score breakdowns. Hashtags flooded social media. Hashtag justice for Adama. Hashtag 241, not 145. Hashtag a mind lost too soon. Adama's story, once local, had become a symbol, a call, a warning. Hajara's journal. Hajara hadn't left her house in days. She had played Adama's last voice note more times than she could count. It was from a week before the results. If I fail again, don't cry for me, okay? Just do better than me. She remembered the smile Adama gave her that day. Forced, heavy, and she remembered not knowing how deep her friend's pain had gone. So she did something. She wrote an open letter to everyone who had ever tied their worth to his score, to every student who had stared at a number and felt smaller than they were. She titled it, "A Life is Not a Grade." It was published in the Zaran Weekly, then republished in national papers. Within days, it went viral. People quoted it at educational conferences. It was printed on posters, school walls, campaign banners. Hajara never asked for attention. She only wanted one thing. Let her name mean something. Let her not be another forgotten headline. The apology. Weeks later, Adama's family received an official letter of apology from the National Examination Board. It arrived in a sealed envelope, typed, formal, cold. "We regret the technical error that led to the misrepresentation of your daughter's score. Measures have been put in place to prevent future incidents." There was no compensation, no offer of counseling, just regrets. Adama's father folded the letter and placed it under the framed photo of his daughter on the shelf. Then he turned to his youngest son and said, "From now on, we teach the truth about failure, that it doesn't define worth, that one mistake, ours or theirs, shouldn't take everything." The legacy. Today, at the edge of Zaron's school compound, a bench stands beneath a mango tree. It's simple, cement and paint, donated by former students. Carved across its backrest are the words, "Adama Musa, she fought to learn." Every year, during research season, students sit there. Some laugh, some cry, but all of them remember. And because of her, they check twice. They speak up. They wait for truth before making decisions that can't be undone. Because a number can never measure a life. The rainy season came late to Zaran that year, but when it arrived, it did so with a kind of rage. The skies wept like they had finally heard what happened. In the quiet between thunderclaps, something else had started to rise. A voice, not from a politician, not from a ministry, but from someone who had lived the loss. Hajara, Adama's best friend, was no longer just a girl who cried at a funeral. She had become something else, a reluctant leader in the storm of silence. The first meeting. It began in the dusty assembly hall of their secondary school. Hajara asked the principal for permission to hold a student forum. At first, he waved her off. Talk to who? About what? These students need to focus on their books, not feelings. But she didn't leave. She returned the next day, and the next, until he gave her 1 hour, 1 hall, 1 microphone. She posted a small sign on the wall that read, "The score doesn't own you." And she waited. 10 students came, then 15, then 30. Some sat with arms crossed. Some came just to escape class. But when Hajara spoke, the room stilled. We are taught to fight for grades, but not how to survive when we don't get them. She paused. I buried my best friend because no one told her that failing doesn't make you unworthy. So today, we'll learn what school never taught us. How to breathe through disappointment. How to ask for help. How to live. The room didn't applaud, but it listened. And for the first time, students spoke about what it felt like to carry invisible pressure. To feel like your whole family's future sat on your shoulders. To want to disappear when a number showed up on a screen. What started as a 1-hour meeting became a weekly gathering. They called it the Safe Score Circle, and it began spreading. Change at the top. Meanwhile, pressure had mounted at the national level. The Adama Musa incident had triggered a parliamentary hearing. News anchors repeated her story night after night. Educational advocates used that case as a call to overhaul the examination system. At the center of the storm sat a man in a dark suit, Mr. Idris Madaki, head of the National Examination Board. When summoned before the panel, he began with a standard defense. "We have already issued an apology. Measures have been." A lawmaker interrupted him. "A girl is dead, Mr. Madaki. Apologies don't restore her life." Then came the evidence. Lots of failed server responses. Internal emails raising red flags weeks before result day. Delays in issuing system patches. For the first time, the public saw it clearly. Adama's death wasn't caused by accident. It was caused by failure and negligence. Mr. Madaki was dismissed a week later. In his place, the Ministry of Education appointed Dr. Marian Olowu, a reformist with a background in education psychology. Her first act: mandatory mental health briefings in all examination centers. Her second: the launch of an independent platform where students could review detailed result analytics to verify, not just accept, their results. She called it Project 241 in memory of Adama Musa. Hajara's letter told the nation. 1 year after Adama's death, Hajara was invited to speak at the National Student Summit in Abuja. She stood behind a podium taller than she had ever seen. In front of cameras, strangers, ministers, her voice shook at first, but her words did not. Adama was not weak. She was not unstable. She was exhausted. She carried her family's dreams, her community's hopes. And when the system failed her, she thought she had failed them. But she didn't. We did. All of us who told her that worth lives in a skull. So I'm here to say, no more silence, no more shame, no more pretending that numbers are bigger than names. There was no thunderous applause, just a stillness that said they heard her. Epilogue: the bench under the tree. Back in Zaran, life continued. Power still went out. Markets still bustled. Children still chased tires in the dust. But some things had changed. There was a new sign at the library. "Welcome to the Adama Musa Study Hall." There was a wall where students posted letters to themselves, reminders that failure was survivable and dreams could bend without breaking. And the bench under the tree, it stayed. Each year, when results were released, someone would sit there with a candle, not to mourn, but to remember and to remind that a score is not a sentence, that a glitch is not a grave, and that one girl's silence became a generation's voice. 5 years later, the sun still rose the same way in Zaran. The town hadn't changed much. The road still cracked under it. The water still ran dry some mornings. and the power still blinked like it wasn't sure whether to stay or go. But one thing had changed. Students no longer feared their voices. Across the country, Project 241 had grown into a national movement. Mental health counseling in schools, result verification platforms, and student-led forums across every state. Its symbol? A candle with the initials AM etched into the flame. The girl who once studied by candlelight had become a light herself. And Hajara? She was no longer just Adama's friend. She was a name whispered in student halls, a speaker, a mentor, a listener, a quiet fighter who chose to build what she had once wished existed. Adama's life may have ended with silence, but her name became a beginning, a call to reform, a reason to listen, and a reminder: a test can measure answers, but it can never measure worth.